Pride versus humility. Who does God lift up? A wealthy landowner once built two towers on his land. One tower stood tall, shining, reaching high into the sky. It was built quickly, proudly, with polished stone and golden edges that caught the sunlight. People came from far away just to look at it, to admire it, to talk about the man who built something so magnificent. The second tower stood quietly at a distance. It was smaller, simpler, almost unnoticed. No gold, no shine, just strong stones placed carefully, patiently, one at a time. The man who built it worked in silence, often alone, never rushing, never boasting. Now here's the strange part. When people asked the landowner which tower he valued more, he would always smile, but never answer. Years passed. Storms came. Winds howled. Rain fell harder than anyone had ever seen. And one night, a storm unlike any other struck the land. The proud tower, the one everyone admired, trembled. Cracks spread across its shining surface. Because beneath its beauty, its foundation was shallow, built quickly, built for attention, built with pride, and before the night ended, it collapsed. Not slowly, but all at once. The sound echoed across the land, and by morning, nothing remained but rubble. People were shocked, confused. How could something so great fall so fast? But then they turned and saw the second tower, still standing, unshaken, because what no one noticed, what no one cared to see, was that its foundation went deep, very deep. Built patiently, built carefully, built with humility. And the landowner, looking at the standing tower, finally spoke. The one who builds to be seen will fall when tested. But the one who builds with humility will stand when it matters. Now listen, because this is where the story truly begins. What if I told you that you are building one of those towers right now? Not with stone, but with your choices, your attitude, your heart. And the question is not if the storm will come, because it will. The real question is, when it comes, will you still be standing? Because tonight's story is about a man who built the first tower. Tall, impressive, admired, but empty beneath the surface. And when his storm came, it didn't just shake his life, it exposed it. And what he discovered in the ruins changed everything. His name was Jonathan Hale. And if you had met him before the fall, you would have believed he was unbreakable. A man who turned nothing into everything. A man who walked with confidence so strong it felt like certainty. A man who believed success was proof that he was right about everything. But here's the thing. He wasn't building a life. He was building a tower. And he didn't even realize how close it was to collapse. Listen closely, because what happens next might just change the way you see your own life forever. Because storms don't send warnings the way we expect. They don't knock politely. They don't ask if you're ready. They arrive, suddenly, violently, and they reveal what was hidden all along. Jonathan didn't see his storm coming, not because there were no signs, but because pride has a way of blinding you to them. The emails he ignored, the warnings he dismissed, the people who tried to speak truth but were quietly pushed aside. Because in his world, he was always right. And when you believe you're always right, you stop listening. And when you stop listening, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you start falling without even knowing it. It was a cold evening when everything shifted. The city lights stretched endlessly outside his office window, a view he once loved, a view that reminded him of how far he had come. But that night, it felt different, heavy, unsettling, like something unseen was about to break through the surface. His phone buzzed, then again, and again, notifications flooding in, faster than he could process. At first, he ignored them. Probably nothing urgent, he muttered. But deep down, something didn't feel right. And then, the call came. Short, sharp, unforgiving. Jonathan, we've lost it. Lost what? The deal. The foundation of everything he had built over the past year. Gone. Not delayed. Not damaged. Gone. His grip tightened around the phone. That's not possible. But it was. And what made it worse was what followed. Allegations, financial exposure, internal betrayal. And here's the shocking part. The betrayal didn't come from enemies. It came from within. People he trusted, people he thought he controlled. Because pride convinces you that loyalty can be bought. But humility understands that loyalty is earned. Within days, everything began to unravel. Contracts dissolved. Accounts froze. Media turned. And the same voices that once praised him now questioned him. Publicly. Relentlessly. Jonathan fought back. Of course he did. Because that's what he had always done. Fix it. Control it. Win. But this time, nothing responded. No strategy worked. No influence helped. No power remained. And for the first time in his life, he faced something he had never prepared for. Powerlessness. Pause. Listen. This is where most people break. Not when they lose everything, but when they realize they were never in control to begin with. Weeks passed, then months. The tower he built crumbled piece by piece, and slowly, painfully, Jonathan was left with something unfamiliar. Silence. No meetings. No applause. No distractions. Just him and his thoughts. And they were loud. Memories replaying. Moments he once overlooked, now impossible to ignore. The employee he humiliated in a meeting. The friend he cut off because they disagreed with him. The quiet voice of his own conscience that he buried under success. And here's the thing. Success can silence your conscience. But failure makes it speak louder than ever. One night, sitting alone in the dim light of a small apartment, far from the life he once knew, Jonathan stared at his reflection in a dark window. And for the first time, he didn't recognize the man looking back. Who am I without all of this? The question didn't just sit in his mind. It echoed, over and over again. Because his identity was built on what he had. And now, he had nothing. And here's the deeper truth. When your identity is built on pride, losing everything feels like losing yourself. Days blurred together. Sleep became difficult. Peace, non-existent. Until one moment, one simple, quiet, almost invisible moment changed everything. He whispered, "God." The word felt heavy, foreign, like speaking a language he had forgotten. "Are you still there?" Silence. No answer. No sign. And yet, something shifted. Not outside, inside. Because humility doesn't begin with certainty. It begins with a question. A real one. An honest one. And here's the surprising part. God often waits for that moment. Not when you have it all together, but when you finally admit you don't. The next morning, Jonathan woke up feeling different, not better, not fixed, but aware, aware of his emptiness, aware of his need. And instead of running from it, he did something unexpected. He stepped into it. He walked outside, no destination, no plan, just walking, as if something was guiding him. And before he even realized it, he was standing in front of a place he hadn't seen in years. A small, quiet, worn-down church. The kind of place he would have ignored before. But now, it felt significant. He hesitated. Because stepping inside meant facing something he had avoided his entire life. Surrender. But something inside him whispered, "Go." And this time, he listened. He pushed the door open, slowly. The sound echoed softly in the quiet room. A few people sat scattered, heads bowed, lost in prayer. No one noticed him. No one turned. No one cared. And strangely, that didn't bother him. Because for the first time, he wasn't looking to be seen. He sat in the back, quiet, still. And at the front, a pastor spoke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but every word felt like it was meant for him. "Pride tells you you are enough on your own," the pastor said softly. "But humility reminds you you were never meant to be." Jonathan's chest tightened. "God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble." The words hit deeper than he expected. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Not his success, not his failure, but his heart. The way he built his life. The way he pushed God out and placed himself at the center. And in that moment, something broke. A tear fell. Then another. And this time, he didn't stop it. Because for the first time, he wasn't trying to hold himself together. He was letting himself fall apart. And here's the truth most people don't understand. Sometimes, falling apart is exactly how God puts you back together. Days turned into weeks. Jonathan kept returning. Not because he had answers, but because he needed them. And slowly, quietly, something began to change. Not his circumstances, not his status, but his heart. He started listening more, talking less, helping others, without expecting anything in return. And something unexpected happened. Peace. Not the kind that comes from control, but the kind that comes from surrender. And then, one day, everything shifted again. But this time, not in the way he feared. Listen, because this moment, this is where the story takes a turn you didn't see coming. Because sometimes, the moment you think your story is settling, God is actually preparing to reveal something deeper. It was a quiet afternoon. The kind of afternoon where nothing seems important, and yet everything is. Jonathan was arranging chairs after a small gathering at the church. No spotlight, no recognition, just simple work. The kind of work he once would have avoided, the kind of work he once believed was beneath him. And here's the thing, months ago, this moment would have felt like failure. Now, it felt like peace. He wiped his hands, stepped back, and for a brief second, he smiled. Not because his life was perfect, but because for the first time, it was real. And then, a voice behind him. Jonathan? He froze. That voice, it carried something familiar. Not warmth, not comfort, power. He turned slowly, and there he was, Ethan Cole, a man from his past, a competitor, a rival, someone who once stood on the opposite side of every negotiation, every deal, every battle. Ethan looked exactly the same. Sharp suit, confident posture, eyes that measured everything. But what he saw in Jonathan confused him. I heard what happened, Ethan said. A pause. Jonathan nodded. No defense, no explanation, just truth. And that alone was different. Because the old Jonathan would have justified, argued, protected his image. But this Jonathan had nothing to protect. Ethan studied him carefully. You don't look broken. There was almost suspicion in his voice, as if peace, in the middle of loss, didn't make sense. Jonathan let out a quiet breath. I was, he said honestly, but I think I needed to be. Silence settled between them, heavy, thoughtful. Then Ethan spoke again. We're building something new. Jonathan didn't react. We need someone who understands scale, pressure, leadership, Ethan continued. Someone who knows how to win. And then, a slight pause. Someone like you. Now listen carefully. Because this moment, this is where everything could have gone back to the way it was. The old path, the old mindset, the old pride. Opportunity was standing right in front of him. Familiar, tempting, powerful. And for a split second, he felt it. That pull, that voice inside that said, this is your chance to rise again. But then, another voice, quieter, deeper, stronger. Who are you becoming? Jonathan looked at Ethan, and instead of answering immediately, he paused. A real pause. The kind of pause that only comes when something inside you has changed. Let me think about it, he said softly. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound like you. Jonathan smiled, just slightly. I know. And in that moment, something invisible, but powerful, happened. Because for the first time in his life, Jonathan wasn't chasing an opportunity. He was choosing alignment, not with success, but with purpose. Ethan nodded slowly. All right, take your time. And as he walked away, Jonathan stood still, not confused, not tempted, just aware. Aware that the greatest victory he had just experienced wasn't gaining something. It was not losing himself again. Pause. Listen. This is where the story turns in a way most people don't expect. Because we often think that when God lifts you up, it means restoring everything you lost. The money, the status, the position. But what if that's not the real lifting? What if the real elevation is internal? What if God isn't trying to give you back your old life, but to give you a new one? Days passed. Jonathan prayed, not out of routine, not out of fear, but out of sincerity. God, what do you want? Not, what do I want? And that question changed everything. Because humility doesn't demand direction. It seeks it. One evening, after a quiet time of reflection, he felt clarity. Not loud, not overwhelming, but steady, peaceful. The kind of clarity that doesn't shout, but settles. And he knew, not what would happen next, but how he would move forward, with God, not ahead of him. The next day, he met Ethan again. Same confidence, same presence, same offer. So, what's your answer? Ethan asked. Jonathan looked at him, calm, grounded. I'll join, he said. Ethan smiled, almost victorious. But then Jonathan continued, on one condition. That caught him off guard. What condition? Jonathan's voice was steady. We build it differently. Ethan frowned slightly. Differently? How? Jonathan took a breath. No shortcuts. No stepping on people. No decisions driven by ego. A pause. Integrity first, always. Ethan stared at him. This wasn't the man he used to know. This wasn't the competitor who crushed opposition without hesitation. This was someone else. And here's the moment. The unexpected twist. The one that changes everything. Ethan leaned back slightly and smiled. Do you know why I came to you? Jonathan didn't answer. Because I'm tired, Ethan said quietly. That was unexpected. Tired of winning the wrong way, he continued. Tired of building things that look strong, but collapse under pressure. A long pause. I thought maybe you'd still be the same. He looked at Jonathan again. But you're not. Jonathan didn't respond. Because he understood. Not just the words, but the weight behind them. And then Ethan said something that no one saw coming. I need what you found. Silence. Deep. Real. And in that moment, the story flipped. Because the man who once chased power was now leading with humility. And the man who still had power was searching for something more. And here's the truth. The one that hits deeper than anything else in this story. God didn't just lift Jonathan. He used him. Not when he was proud. Not when he was powerful. But when he was surrendered. Because humility doesn't just change your life. It changes the lives around you. Months later, the new company grew. Not explosively, not aggressively, but steadily, strongly, and differently. People weren't afraid. They were valued. Decisions weren't rushed. They were guided. And success came. But this time, it didn't define Jonathan because he had already found something greater. Identity in God, not an achievement. Listen closely, because this is the part most people miss. Jonathan didn't get his old life back. He got something better. A life that couldn't be shaken, because it wasn't built on pride, it was built on humility. And when the next storm came, because storms always come, he stood. not because he was strong, but because his foundation was God. So now, let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. What are you building right now? A tower that looks impressive, or a foundation that will last? Because one day, the storm will come, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. And when it does, will you still be standing? Or will you finally realize you were building on the wrong things all along? If this story spoke to you, if something inside you shifted, don't ignore it, because that's where transformation begins. Take a moment, breathe, reflect, and ask yourself, am I living in pride or walking in humility? Because that answer will shape your future. And before you go, if this message touched your heart, if it opened your eyes, if it brought you even one step closer to God, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone out there right now is building a tower that's about to fall. And this story might be the warning they need. And if you believe in stories that heal, stories that guide, stories that bring people back to truth, subscribe to Parables of Hope. Your support matters. It helps us continue creating these messages. It helps us reach more hearts. It helps us spread light in a world that desperately needs it. Watch our previous videos, stay connected, grow with us. Because this journey, it's not meant to be walked alone. And here's the final truth I want to leave you with. Not as a story, but as something real. God doesn't lift the proud, no matter how high they stand. He lifts the humble, no matter how low they feel. So stay grounded, stay faithful, and remember, the moment you choose to kneel might be the moment God raises you higher than you ever imagined. Just stay with me for a moment, because this is not just the end of a story. This is the part where it becomes yours. Jonathan stood alone one evening, long after everyone had left. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, but full of memories, full of change, full of something he once chased everywhere, but only found when he stopped chasing: peace. He walked slowly to the front, sat down, and looked at the same place where months ago he had nothing left. No answers, no strength, no direction, just broken pieces. And now, those same pieces had formed something new, not perfect, but real. He closed his eyes and whispered softly, "Thank you, not for giving me everything I wanted, but for taking away everything I thought I needed." A tear rolled down his face, not from pain, but from understanding, because now he knew God didn't break him to destroy him. God broke him to reach him. And listen, here's the truth that might hit you deeper than anything else tonight. Sometimes God will remove what you're holding on to, because it's the very thing keeping you from him. Not because he wants to hurt you, but because he loves you too much to leave you where you are. So if you feel like you're losing something right now, if life feels like it's falling apart, if you're standing in the middle of something you don't understand, pause and ask yourself, what if this is not the end, but the moment God is trying to find me? Because maybe, just maybe, God does his deepest work when you have nothing left. And if that's where you are right now, then hear this clearly. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not too far gone. You are exactly at the place where God can finally begin. So don't run. Don't harden your heart. Don't let pride tell you that you have to carry it all alone. Because you don't. You never did. Just surrender. Even if it's messy. Even if it's just a whisper. Even if all you can say is, God, I need you. Because that simple moment can change everything. And if this story touched your heart, if you felt something shift inside you, if you felt even a little closer to God right now, then don't let this moment pass. Share it. Someone out there is silently breaking, just like Jonathan was. And this message might be the light they've been waiting for. And we need your support. Truly, if you believe in spreading hope, in sharing truth, in helping people come back to God, then subscribe to Parables of Hope. Your support helps us reach more people, helps us create more stories like this, helps us remind the world that faith still matters. Go and watch our other videos. Stay connected with us. Grow with us. Because this journey of faith, it's not meant to be walked alone. And here's something I want to leave in your heart. Carry it with you. Think about it tonight. Remember it when life gets hard. God doesn't look for the strongest voice. He listens for the most surrendered heart. So stay humble, stay faithful, and trust this. The moment you feel the lowest might be the exact moment God is lifting you the highest.